What's going on, Flock Nation? Big time win by the Baltimore Ravens over the Dallas Cowboys. And it looks like Daniel Falele haters, haters like me may have a little bit of crow to eat after this big time performance from him.
And not only that, but Tyler Loop showed up in a big way, almost perfect on the night, including some big booming 50-plus yard kicks.
Rise and shine. It's the Ravens Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything Baltimore Ravens every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of Charm City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Flock together and squad up. The Ravens Squad Show starts now.
What's going on, Flock Nation? Welcome to another edition of the Ravens Squad Show. Ravens take care of business, preseason game number 2. The win streak is on. The Ravens take care of business. Tyler Loop looks like he's going to be a phenomenal kicker. So much so that John Harbaugh just went ahead and announced him the starter. So we'll touch on that. We'll touch on all things with the Ravens. We'll touch on overall how the offense and defense did. Some players that looked a little shaky. The first game came around and had a pretty decent showing here in game 2 against the Dallas Cowboys. Kevin, I'm going to start with you because Tyler Loop just got named the starter. I mean, he is officially entrenched. Didn't have a battler partner. The Ravens got rid of his only competition, but he did well enough in this game, 5 for 6 on the field goals on the day, including 2 extra points that were made to solidify himself as a starter.
Yeah, I hope you'd start with me. I'm the only other one here.
So that's true.
Q unfortunately couldn't make it to this one. He's obviously out in Vegas right now with his son, with Kadir, and I think Kadir had I didn't check the final stat line, but I saw he did have a big catch. So
he did 2 catches.
He was able to add on to that. So Q will be back with us on Monday. But yeah, I mean, Tyler Loop, what a beast. I mean, seriously. And again, it's preseason, so you don't want to overreact either which way. I know that if he had gone perfect, I might have had to put him in the thumbnail for my instant reaction show, which I had some audio issues on. So again, I apologize for that. I'm sounding good. I did the test of am I enough away from the microphone? It's a little Shaka sign. It's supposed to be like this on the mic. But Loop, he showed off his leg. We know the Ravens have a type, right? They like their strong-legged kickers. And you could see on the one wide left, and I'm curious actually to see if there'll be a breakdown on it. I'm going to go look back on it as well and see what I can find. But you can see he's just confident out there. And with him on the 50-plus yarders, there was room to spare on those kicks. Like, he could have probably been good from 57, from maybe 60. I don't know. Get a little spicy. So I like what I saw from him. I think it's just being able to build momentum. And I like that he got all the opportunities. Like, obviously, you would like to see the Ravens score some more touchdowns. And I say that as they all just went out there and obliterated the Cowboys. Like, the game wasn't even close. But even still, that's why there are positives in preseason, where during the regular season, it is definitely like a dang, like they need to punch these balls into the end zone. But in the preseason, it's like, okay, you can either score a touchdown and we're happy, or they don't score a touchdown and we get to see Tyler Loop continue to get added opportunities. So it was a win-win for me. I thought this was a statement game for Tyler Loop, and I'm just really happy he had a game like that tonight.
Yeah, me too. I was kind of on the fence of, do I want to see the Ravens score some touchdowns, like you said, with Devin Leary? But overall, I was like, let's give this guy some more opportunities. He needs the reps. There's a good chance we don't see Devin Leary in action, or even Cooper Rush for that matter, but we're going to see a lot of Tyler Loop in the upcoming season. So let's get him as many opportunities as you can. He did have that one miss 50-yarder, but man, he was drilling those other kicks time in and time out. And you saw the confidence, as you mentioned. He's not afraid to miss a kick. He's going to come back in and do it again. Preseason is the time to miss kicks, and he didn't miss very much. I think this is his first miss of the preseason. So very excited for Tyler Loop. But I know there was a lot of doubt, a lot of anxiousness with the loss of Justin Tucker and the emergence of Tyler Loop after the draft. Seems like the Ravens are in good hands here. Rookie kicker, another big leg kicker. I'm feeling good. Where's your confidence with Tyler Loop at now, Kevin? As you've seen him, make these kicks both in practice, camp, and now in the preseason. Is your confidence a little higher? Do you still think that it's going to be one of those things where mistakes are going to happen and we'll see where things go? Or are you feeling like, okay, this kicker could be a force come this regular season?
Well, I think he has the potential to be. I mean, I think you look at the leg and you look at everything he brings to the table. Again, I'm not going to necessarily overreact and say, oh, he's going to go perfect on the season. And, that one miss was his last one and he's going to be the best kicker in NFL history. Like, I'm not there. But I think at the end of the day, you do have to feel a lot more confident in Loop at this point, especially because of what, there were some early struggles for him over workouts. And I think that a lot of people, and the thing with Loop, and I've made the I've made the comparison before, where with this Ravens team and where they are competitive wise, they're competing for a Super Bowl. And so if you are a team that maybe isn't competing for a Super Bowl, you're able to go through some growing pains with younger guys and say, okay, with these mistakes, we can work through those during the season. It's all for the long game. Every year for the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, that is its own Super Bowl or bust season. So with Tyler Loop and being a rookie, I understand there is like that anxious level of, well, okay, what if the spotlight is too bright for Tyler Loop? Like, what if he gets to the regular season and that pressure mounts and he can't do? I mean, for years, we saw Justin Tucker go out there, cool, calm under pressure, 50, 55, 60 inches, nail field goals like it was nothing. And it's a shift from that. Like, I am expecting rookie growing pains, but I think what we saw is that some of those balls were just straight down the middle. Like, there was no doubt about it. No curve, no nothing, just straight line ball into back of the net with, as I mentioned, room to spare. So I'm not saying my confidence level is like out of this world, but I also think that it has improved from where it was a pretty drastic amount a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I was with you earlier in the offseason with Tyler Loop. Okay, let's just accept the growing pains. But now we're seeing some talent, show very early in the preseason process. So I'm very happy for Tyler Loop. Nick Moore, a current guest on the show. Yeah, I'm sure he's very excited about it. Tyler Loop showing up and showing out. He's been very high on Tyler Loop these past couple of weeks, saying that he's going to have growing pains, but he has the talent to make it done. He's played with Justin Tucker, who's by all accounts the best kicker to ever play the game. So definitely good to see the comparisons, and it's showing up. Just to make note of it, Tyler Loop had a 29, 36, 42, 51, and 53-yard field goal, all made, missed the 50-yarder, had those 2 extra points made. So he had a very busy time here in the preseason and definitely shined enough where John Harbaugh just went out and said it. He's going to be the kicker starting week 1. So very happy for Tyler Loop, and hopefully this success continues. But there's other players in special teams, and Wester was a guy who showed out in week 1, not so much in week 2. Obviously, you're not going to return a kick for a touchdown every single week. What are your thoughts about Wester in this contest? Do you think that he showed enough or built upon his momentum in week 1?
Man, that's what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to return a touchdown every single week. I mean, man, yeah. You start off your NFL career like that in the preseason. Yeah, that's your – no, I'm kidding. I mean, look, I think because he didn't have the flashy plays, everyone was just kind of like, oh, okay, this is kind of disappointing. I thought that play that he had where he faked the return and the ball was like 10, 15 yards over his head and the Cowboys defender came in and just took his legs out. Like, that was pretty – it was cool that LeJohntay was able to fake a guy out like that and the ball kind of just trickled in from the punter there. But I think that at the end of the day, LeJohntay still to me is the punt returner. He still has that job locked up. I'm not going to go too crazy again, one way or the other in the preseason. But I will say though, Myles Gaskin, he shows some burst on some of those kick returns that he had. And honestly, as a receiver, he showed that burst. Now, I don't think he's going to make the roster or anything like that, but hey, maybe it's a guy you can put on the practice squad who can be maybe like your break glass in case of emergency type of guy. I wouldn't be mad at a situation like that. So, LeJohntay also had the Cooper Rush first interception was so weird to me. I know that you thought it was Ben Cleveland, and then you're like, wait a second, hold on. I actually
you saw that.
I saw Cooper. Okay, now this is on you. Cooper threw the ball a little early. LeJohntay also wasn't turned around, and the ball was maybe a tad behind him. And then LeJohntay also kind of got grabbed a little bit, but even still, it was a play that Cooper certainly would like to have back. But, I think LeJohntay struggled at times to create separation. He obviously had that drop as well, which is tough. He got ahead. It's the classic drop, right? He gets ahead of himself. He turns before the ball is fully caught, and then he drops it. Now, the Ravens aren't going to be relying on him to be a wide receiver this year for the most part, right? I think you and I both talked about he could have a specific set number of plays, maybe anywhere from like 2 to 5 or 2 to 4 or something where he could make an impact there. But that's not going to be his bread and butter this season. So I think as a returner, he honestly looked pretty confident fair catching balls too. Like sometimes when a returner's kind of uneasy about it, that can make you uneasy. Like it makes me uneasy watching it. Seemed like he wasn't phased. He was making the catches, and sometimes it's little things like that can make all the difference. So I thought LeJohntay wasn't nearly as flashy as last week. And, I know that's disappointing because of what we saw, but I think he'll be all right.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm glad you mentioned it. Sometimes it's not about returning for a touchdown. Obviously, that's the goal. You want that to happen. I'm sure the players feel that way as well. But, sometimes it's the little things you want to see from your returner. Have confidence, fair catch, and, duping the opposing team when you're trying to, return the ball. Took his legs out. That's all good things you want to see from your young returner, your rookie returner. So you look like a veteran out there in some aspects. And yeah, we'll touch on it in the next part of the show about what Wester did on the offensive side of the ball and the quarterbacks that, may have played a part in that. But you're right. Speed isn't the only thing that helps you get separation. It's also about being a good route runner, having those reps. So maybe in a year or so, he'll get that together. But I think for now, it looks like Wester's going to be that punt returner for the Ravens. And he does have the flashes where teams are going to have to definitely prepare for him because he can definitely take it back at any time. What about kick returner? You mentioned Gaskins. Ali's another guy. Looks like, after the game, Harbaugh went on and said that they're going to keep 4 running backs, and Ali probably going to get that 4th running back spot, most likely because of special teams. Do you think it's Ali's job at kick returner? Do you see another guy coming in and potentially taking it? Maybe Wester becomes a kick returner as well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think when everybody's healthy, it will probably be Keaton and Ali back there if they do keep 4 like that. I did really like what I saw from Gaskin though. Like I truly think and I was kind of wondering, I'm like, who, because it was 38 and I'm like, is Keon Martin returning kicks right now? Like, who is this? And then obviously it was Gaskin with the 38 on offense, but I liked the burst there. Like, obviously if I had to make an assumption, yes, like Ali will probably be that guy barring something absolutely crazy, but they just need juice at that spot. They haven't had that for a long time, both at punt return and kick return. They've had their moments, but at the end of the day, with the fact that Mitchell is still hurt, we don't really know what's going on with him at this point, and it was crazy because after the game in week 1, Sam, it was Harbaugh that was like, oh, Ali's hurt. We have to reevaluate our whole running back room. And then it was actually Mitchell and Ali was healthy. So I don't know what that whole situation was, but
Harbaugh did not pass, medical school or whatever it is.
I just, look, I make it clear on the show. I'm not a doctor. All right. I make that very clear. I try my best. Q's the one out of the 3 of us that knows the most about, the human body and human movement and all that. But yeah, I think kick return wise, and again, it doesn't have to be like you take it to the house every single play, but can you get it out to the 30, 35, right? All that. I think that can be a big asset to you. It can honestly be the difference when you have a strong legged kicker like a Tyler Loop. 10 yards can be the difference between getting them like right in that 53, 55 range and being right on that cusp of like 60, 65. So I think that the Ravens right now, Ali had decent returns. Gaskin was explosive. I think they have options.
Yeah, I think they have options too. Wester obviously is the star of the show, but they also have other assets that can use Ali. I'm a big Ali guy. Maybe not going to crack the depth chart in terms of getting some rushing attempts in the regular season, but he could be a guy that gets those kick returns and potentially, breaks into the house. He has the speed, he has the acceleration, he has the vision. We see what happens, but good for Tyler Loop. I think that's the main story here. Tyler Loop secures that kicking spot. A lot of Ravens fans wondering if he can fill the shoes of Tucker. I think that remains to be seen, but at least we know that he's on the right step to potential greatness with his effort here against the Dallas Cowboys. When we come back, we'll touch on the offense. The offense was the conversation starter for sure throughout the entire week after the Ravens took care of business against the Colts, but a lot of players that we thought were going to show up that didn't. But in week 2, I think a lot of fans were surprised by the outing, at least felt a little less anxious with the play of these guys. But we'll touch on it here next on the Raven Squad Show. We are back here on the Raven Squad Show. Again, we're here twice a week. Mondays and Thursdays, usually at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. But because of the games, we'll have one show this time on Monday and then one post-game show after the Ravens game, last preseason game upcoming. But you can also catch Kevin Monday through Friday on the Locked On Ravens podcast. He's there for your news source wherever you get your Ravens news. Make sure you get it from KO because he's the guy that's going to keep you up to date on everything happening with the Baltimore Ravens. But the Ravens were a little uneasy, at least the fans were, in terms of the way the offense played in week 1 and week 2. Key guys that were expecting to have key roles in the regular season showed up a little bit better, at least in my opinion. Let's start with Daniel Falele, because he was the guy that had the entire Flock Nation talking. I mean, it was a huge topic of conversation. He did not look good in week 1, but in week 2, I have to say he looked a little bit better. KO, let me get your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, look, sometimes no news is good news when it comes to offensive line. Honestly, when it comes to a lot of positions in the league. Daniel Falele played a lot better in this game. Like he did. And obviously I strive for it here on Locked On Ravens. I know you do as well, Sam, where, we're going to criticize guys when they deserve to be criticized, and we're going to praise guys when they deserve to be praised. And I think last week Falele was certainly deserving of criticism. This week, I think he played a lot better. He was sealing off edges very well. He was holding his blocks, giving Cooper Rush time to throw. It was just an overall better effort. And I think that's kind of what it's going to be for Falele this season. Like, there will be games like this one, and then there will be games like we saw in week 1 of the preseason, where there'll just be those. And that's what we said about Falele. Like, when he loses very loudly and very hard. Like, Falele doesn't have gracious losses, it feels like. It's just when he loses, it is over in an instant, and you see it and you feel it happen. So, look, I feel a lot better at that spot than I did last week. I mean, I think everybody does. I know Roger Rosengarten got beat on a play. Joe Noteboom did not look good as the backup offensive lineman. I think that's a spot, and I talked about this on the instant reaction and obviously on the watch along as well, where we reacted to the game live. The depth on the offensive line worries me, because Patrick McCarry's not there to save you anymore. Like, he was the guy that you could plug and play anywhere you wanted to. If you needed a guy in a pinch and you didn't want to like flip linemen or exchange multiple guys, because usually how some things work with these teams is if a guy goes down, your best option is to flip 2 or 3 guys already starting to insert another guy somewhere else. With McCarry, you could have just put him in anywhere, and you didn't. It was a 1-for-1 exchange. Noteboom, and Taurus, Noteboom is number 68. I see you in the chat. So Noteboom is 68. He was the first in this game, the first string offensive tackle. But like that was essentially their Josh Jones replacement. And he didn't look great. But Falele, I thought, look, if I have to say that Noteboom was bad and Falele was good, I'd rather be saying that than Noteboom was good and Falele was bad.
Yes, I am right there with you. I was very critical of Falele last week. Gotta say, again, he didn't look superb in this contest. It wasn't like he was flashing on the screen like Marshall Yonder. You didn't necessarily see him push anyone forward or do anything, but he held his blocks, didn't make the critical mistake. He wasn't the reason a play was, squashed or anything of that sort. And that's positive. That is positive news for Falele, in my opinion. So definitely a step in the right direction. If we're going to criticize the guy when he does poorly, we have to, turn it around when he does well. So good job of Falele for bouncing back. We want to see improvement. We want to see him get better. But you see the Ravens' notion here is just to, be cheap where they need to be cheap and, spend money elsewhere. They look like they're going to be a little cheap here with the guard position, and then potentially, use that money elsewhere to get some good value out of Falele. If he performs like this throughout the season, maybe a couple of two or three loud plays here and there that, cost him a player or two, but nothing severe would be the ultimate goal for Falele this season. So definitely good to see from Falele. Everyone talked about potentially getting him replaced with a guy by the name of Ben Cleveland. He didn't look so great. He was the guy Falele's great play coupled with Ben Cleveland's poor play really shut down a lot of the critics of Falele last week. What are your thoughts about him, KO? Maybe misconstrue something. I know there was a play, we talked about it, when he looked like he missed a blitz that ultimately, I believe, played a part in the turnover. Not the main reason for the turnover with Cooper Rush, but definitely a part of it. So what were your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it goes back to the depth thing with me here. I mean, the Ravens clearly don't like him. Like, I'm just calling it like it is. Like, they clearly don't like him. I think he was brought back because there were no other options for him in particular. And, like, he's familiar with the system. Like, he had a weird offseason. It's been a weird tenure for him. And I'm sure plays like this just bury him on the... Like, I just think they're so hypercritical of him. And like in this game, yes, he didn't play well. Like, we can be critical of him too here, but seems like the messaging when Falele has a bad game versus the messaging when Cleveland has a bad game is very different. I mean, we saw Todd Monken go up there and just absolutely obliterate. You and I talked about it, obliterated all the Daniel Falele haters. And then John Harbaugh, when talked about Ben Cleveland, was like, yeah, he wasn't great the first couple games or the first couple practices. Then he got it together. And I'm just like, the messaging here is very different to me. So I just look at this point, I think Falele is a better game player than he is a practice player, but this was not a good game for Ben Cleveland. Carson Vincent, he got put in his butt as well. That prompted a talking to from John Harbaugh. He's a young guy and a raw player. So I'm not expecting Carson Vincent to go out there and be a world beater on his first couple games of his NFL career. But that was honestly the most shocking move of the offseason when they brought Cleveland back, because I just think that they weren't impressed with him. And they brought him back, and he's still putting out tape like that. I'm sure that meeting on Monday or whenever they get back in the facility is not going to be very nice. And I don't know. It's not necessarily about the game in particular for me. Like, we can admit that he wasn't good in this one, but it's the overall arching bigger picture of why they brought him back if they're clearly going to just treat him like this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go too much into it, but you're right. They don't really care for Ben Cleveland. I mean, I don't think the criticism that we give him today, again, he wasn't as bad as Daniel Falele was in week one. I know I see some people in the comments saying, I don't think he was bad. Ben Cleveland wasn't a terrible.
It wasn't horrific.
Guard. It wasn't horrific. Yeah, but there were instances where you can clearly see him struggle. And you know, you don't want to see that when you're fighting, you know, amongst fan bases about potentially usurping Daniel Falele for the starting right guard spot. I don't think he did anything in this game to have us convinced that he could potentially take over for Falele. That's all we're saying. But I don't think, again, the Ravens, I don't think they're going to be pushing for it. I think they made it very clear that he's not going to be starting here this season. So barring an injury, I don't think it's going to be Ben Cleveland game. I think this, for me, kind of put a period, an exclamation point on any chance of Ben Cleveland being the starting right guard. Not to say that he won't be on the field, and I know he has some issues that may have him missing some time, but as far as the right guard spot is Daniel Falele's, I think this game pretty much solidifies that. But there are other players to speak about. The quarterback position was not very good in week one and week two. We got to see a lot more of Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush, I think, had a solid game. I want to get your thoughts on the KO before I give my piece. So what were your thoughts about Cooper Rush's performance here?
Yeah, well, I think after week one, we all said it can only be up from here, right? Like,
true.
If it was worse than week one, we'd be in a really bad spot here. So, look, I mean, I think there were plays where he certainly wanted to have back that interception. You and I talked about it a little earlier, where I just think he was late. He was a little early on the throw. LeJohntay hadn't run his route yet. You know, Andrew Booth sees it, jumps it. LeJohntay can't turn around for the ball in time. And obviously he was facing pressure as well, so he kind of had to get the ball out. But even still, the second one, I'm not putting on him at all. Like, that was completely Rashid Ali's fault. Completely Rashid Ali. So you look at the stats, and I mean, look, 20 of 30 for 198 in an interception and a touchdown is not bad. Like, that's not bad. I think it wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. It was kind of in the middle, which I guess is kind of what you want out of your backup quarterback. Now, I'm not all the way sold. I'd still like to see a little more in week 3. But as I've said on this show, and others said it on the watch along and the instant reaction show, Cooper Rush has a $4 million dead cap hit this year compared to a $1.9 million cap hit. Unless something catastrophic happens, he's not going anywhere. This is their backup. Now, Devin Leary is a different conversation. I'm sure we'll get into that in a couple minutes. But to me, Cooper Rush, they believe in him. And again, you can kind of just tell about how coaches speak about certain guys. And John Harbaugh talked after the game about how he thought Cooper was, did his job. He's gotten a lot of praise from the coaching staff. And, I think some of the reasons they're brought up is because of the fact that, they're kind of having iffy practices and, at some points they want to be able to get their piece in. But I mean, I think that it's still, and he shows a little Lamar Jackson on some of those plays, evading some pressure, hey, I mean, it is a weird system fit. He certainly is not, like, they'd probably have to change some stuff around in the offense for Cooper to run it to his full potential. But I feel better about him than I did last week. I guess that's what I wanted to feel. So I guess I got what I wanted.
Yeah, I'm with you. He only had 4 attempts in the last contest. This time he got 30. So that's huge. I think, yeah, I got what I wanted to see. I know a lot of fans would like to see him do better, but he's a backup for a reason, right? He stares down his receivers. He doesn't really do great at, pre or post reads, but, as long as he can get the ball out there more times than not, I'm okay with it. I'm not looking to see the next Lamar Jackson out there. If he was the next Lamar Jackson, he'd be starting somewhere else. But I'm glad I got to see a little more from him. Led me to see more from my receivers, which we'll get into in a little bit. But I do want to touch on Devin Leary, who's a third quarterback here. Struggled mightily against the Colts, 3 for 12. This time he goes 5 for 10 for a little over 50 yards. What are your thoughts about him, KO?
Yeah, kind of the same thing. I think he looked better. Certainly some throws that I'm sure he'd like to have back, but I thought he had a little more zip on his balls tonight as opposed to over the course of what we saw in week 1. I thought he was it was a lot crisper for him in that regard. So that was better. I also think for him, he had a couple of nice throws. The one to Jamal Banks, which was the OPI, which I did not think was OPI, but that's beside the point. That was a really nice throw and a great catch by Banks. I can't remember. It might have been to Dayton Wade where the receivers just couldn't come up with the ball. It was kind of a floater pass. And Devin Leary, his long balls, they take forever to come down.
He's just launching it up.
It's those Russell Wilson moon balls that are coming down. So, I mean, look, still hasn't done enough to me to make the roster. I'd like to see one more week to kind of have the the final audition. And hey, we've seen that work out for guys in the past where Michael Pierce, all those years ago, week 4 of the preseason against, I believe, was the Saints, if I'm not mistaken. That was his final audition, and he made the most of it. So better performance this week by Devin Leary. Still had a couple of throws that were either behind guys or didn't get to a guy or threw into double coverage. But yeah, again, anything was better than last week. So I guess we got that.
Yeah, anything was better than last week. I still don't think it's going to be enough for him to make the squad. I also don't think his mechanics were all over the place in that contest. Again, a lot of it I think had to do with the offensive line. They weren't doing him any favors. But man, you gotta use what little opportunities you get to make a play, and it didn't seem like he did. Again, the OPI call probably should have been a touch. I mean, it should have been a catch. Led to a missed kick by Tyler Loop. That was the sequence that led to that only missed kick from Tyler Loop. So a little upset about that. I think the ref got it wrong, but it is what it is. But other than that, yeah, Devin Leary looks like a third string quarterback, maybe even less than that. And with all of this roster manipulation that the Ravens are doing, keeping 4 running backs, potentially keeping a little more pass rushers, maybe some more interior defensive linemen than initially thought. Lots of DBs that look great that we'll touch on in the next segment of the show. It's going to be very difficult for a guy like Devin Leary to make the team, and we'll see what they do as far as practice squad. Most likely that's where he'll head unless he has, like you mentioned, a pretty significant game in game 3. But we shall see. Let's talk about the receivers because we didn't get to touch on that last week because the quarterbacks played terrible. This time around, the receivers got a chance to shine. I was going to give you a chance to talk about whoever you wanted to, but I'm just going to mention him right now. Tez Walker. Tez Walker looked like a man among boys out there. He looked like he shouldn't be on the field. I mean, at one point I was like, why is he still on the field? I mean, that's how great he looked. What are your thoughts about him or any other receivers that played today?
Yeah, he looked really good. Really, really good. I mean, Tez is the storyline here. 6 for 61, 10.2 yards per catch. And he was doing it in a bunch of different ways. I mean, out route, slants over the middle, everything was working for him. He and Cooper Rush clearly have established that chemistry. I think that there's a lot to like about him. And, we've seen a lot of, I almost call them like the ghosts of Ravens preseason receivers past, where, the Jeremy Butlers, Miles Boykins, James Prochet's, Jordan Lasley's, Jaleel Scott. I can probably have a whole show on all those guys. But, Tez just feels like he showed some of those flashes last season. He's been putting together in training camp. And I think he brings a skill set that they clearly need. And that is that he is a speedier receiver that can go up and catch contested passes as a deep ball guy. But we saw that, his route tree is not just limited to go routes. Like, he can do it all. Yeah. And I was excited from what I saw. I felt like he was calm. He was diving for balls, making sure that he went in there and made sure he was catching footballs. And being secure about it. So I like that about him. Seems like he plays a little bit wiser beyond his years as well. I think a lot of people talk about that with Malachi already, but Tez is one of those guys that I just feel like the game is slowing down a little bit for him now, albeit these are not against the Trayvon Diggs of the world and, those star Dallas corners that they can have out there. But you know what? This is what I say about all these guys. They did what they were supposed to do. They did what they were supposed to do. Tez Walker, he wants to fight for a role this season. Well, then go out there and do it against the players you're supposed to do it against and guys that you're supposed to be better than. And I think Tez did that tonight.
Yep. I'm completely in agreement with you. Obviously, yes, he didn't play competition that he'll probably see on Sundays coming in September, but he did what he had to do. He looked very good. He does have a skill set that's allowing him some playing time, most likely in the regular season. I saw somebody mention after the season when D-Hop leaves, potentially he could step up be that wide receiver 3. And that's a good take. Maybe potentially we'll see what he does in the regular season. But the leap from from year 1 to year 2 for Tez Walker is massive. I would love to hear what he did in the offseason to get so well as a route runner. And being a great route runner just helps you in so many assets, helps you showcase your other skills that made you a draft pick in the first place. So I'm glad he's gotten that route tree down and looking like he's going to be potentially a big part of this offense come the regular season. When we come back, we'll touch on the defense because there were a lot of great players on the defensive end. It's going to make decision-making very hard for John Harbaugh and Zachary Orr. We'll touch on the next here on the Ravens Squad Show. We are back here on the Ravens Squad Show. Ravens take care of business 31-13 over those Dallas Cowboys. Big time game from the defense as well. Let's touch on it because got to talk about him first. We always talk about him. Mike Green.
That doesn't feel the same without Q here.
Does not feel the same. Darn it, Q. You got to be here. So,
we'll get him back on Monday. We'll get him
back on Monday. But taking it over for Q, what were your thoughts on Mike Green? Looked like another dominant effort. Didn't really show up on a stat sheet, but the eye test does not lie.
Yeah, Mike Green. Yeah, see, it doesn't hit the same. It doesn't hit the same.
It doesn't.
But you know what? I think that truly this is one of those performances, like you said. The box score is not going to show you he played well. 2 tackles on the day. But he was almost impossible for this Dallas team to get a hold of for the majority of his time out there. And I'm sure when we're talking on Monday and all the advanced stats have come out and all the other stuff about pass rush win rate and everything, everybody's going to be like, this man just cannot be stopped. We saw in multiple, and I'll start with the 4th down play. Everybody says he's a true 3-down player. No, this man's a 4-down player. He's a true 4-down player. He stacks and sheds his blocker and ends up just being right in position to stop Miles Sanders. Shout out to the assist, by the way, from Teddy Buchanan and Sanusi Kane on that 4th down stop as well. But you could see him just winning off the edge, using his bend again on that interception that Joe Milton threw to Reuben Lowry. He had that offensive lineman on the ground, literally on the ground, trying to block him. And so he didn't get to the quarterback in terms of sacking the quarterback. But there are multiple plays where you can point to that he just beat his offensive lineman and the ball either had to get out quickly or something else happened. And then you can also talk about his motor. Like he was tracking guys down. He was aggressively pursuing ball carriers. And that's one of the things that people talk about with Mike Green. I mention it all the time. Is on a scouting report, one of the things that people didn't like about him was that his motor was too much. Right. That he tires himself out. I've used this example on the instant reaction and on the watch along. I don't know if you saw the Cleveland game today, Sam, but Deontay Johnson ran a route that he essentially gave up on. It resulted in a Dylan Gabriel pick 6, and you could see him giving up and kind of like throwing his hands in the air, and they're like, that. I'd rather have a guy that tires himself out with 100% effort every play, exactly, as opposed to a guy that quote unquote saves his effort and doesn't give that 110% every play. That is the definition, Mike Green's motor, of playing like a Raven. And I think that while he might not have the role that people might expect him to, because the Ravens do tend their trends, and we talked about it, is they tend to veteran. The vets are the ones they tend to favor. So Owe and Robinson, Ajabo, or not Ajabo, Van Noy. Ajabo, though, might make the roster now with the injury situation to Adisa Isaac. But at the end of the day, Mike Green to me, and I will stand firm on the prediction I made with you all those months ago. I think by the end of the season, Mike Green will be the Ravens' best pass rusher. And it's games like this and moments like those where if he keeps winning like that, and again, albeit it's not against top starter offensive lineman, but he did what he was supposed to do. If he keeps doing that, well, I mean, I think everybody expects him to have a pretty bright future here.
Yeah. I mean, let's say he doesn't have the 30 pass rushing rate that he had in week 1 in the regular season. We still see there's room for growth. You know what Chuck Smith's going to do. He's going to get his boys ready. He's done it with lots and lots of talent who are currently on his roster, and so I don't expect him to take any slow steps in this process. I think he's going to be a beast come the end of the season, like you said. But speaking of guys that Chuck Smith has got along, we mentioned that Adisa Isaac dealt with an injury, dislocated elbow is what John Harbaugh called it. So he'll be out for a few weeks. Most likely that means that a spot is open up for a guy like David Ajabo to come in. What are your thoughts about David Ajabo being that fifth guy potentially? Or do you see them making a play for another edge rusher, a la maybe a Jadeveon Clowney? What are your thoughts, KO?
I just put that together right now, man. Hey, it could be. I mean, look, I wasn't necessarily impressed with Ajabo tonight. I mean, at least compared to what we saw last week.
Yeah.
It is possible. I know there's been a lot of talk about him potentially. Oh, where is he going to go? Where is he going to go? I don't know. I mean, we know that Clowney doesn't like to go through the whole training camp ordeal. He signs later in off seasons. And now with this injury, it's possible that, it opens the door for more veterans to come in here. Now, do the Ravens feel like Isaac is a guy that's going to miss just a little bit of time, come back, and then you have a roster crunch, and then it becomes a little weird? I don't know. But, I mean, I would be fine with it. I'd be fine with bringing Clowney back in. I also think that if it's not Clowney, Ajabo's pretty secure in his spot there, because even with the game he had in week 1, I just didn't think there was going to be enough roster room for the Ravens to keep 6 outside linebackers. I think there are too many other spots you have to look at. So, and especially now with some of the other stuff John Harbaugh said about the roster, the path for Ajabo to make it was unfortunately someone going down. And unfortunately that did happen. You never want to see it happen that way. But it did. And at this point, to me, it is probably one of two things. It's either they keep Ajabo and he's their guy, or they go and they sign Clowney. I think it's one of those two. I mean, you also have other guys. It's crazy. Like all these former Ravens, Judon, Zadarius, like all these guys are out there. I mean, they could reunite with a number of former Ravens at that spot.
That's true. And we've seen them do well with veterans in the past. Kavanaugh came out of nowhere. We didn't really expect much when he was signed, but he's been one of the stalwarts at that position, having those double-digit sacks to go along with what's been an impressive career overall. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think they'll likely stay with Ajabo. I don't think they'll move to Jadeveon quite yet. They'll probably see what they have of him. He'll have a little more opportunities in practice and maybe in this upcoming preseason game, but don't be surprised if they're bringing in another guy. I don't know. We'll see. But the Adisa Isaac injury isn't as significant as, you would think, so that, perhaps they'll just hold out with Ajabo until Isaac gets back, and then they'll do what they need to do to get Isaac back on the roster. But, yeah, we'll see what happens. Pass rusher, Mike Green still, I think, solidified himself, stole the show. There are other players. Ruben Lowry played exceptional today. Had that interception. We've seen him flash throughout camp. He's been a focal point from the media. We've been waiting for him to pop out in preseason action. Didn't take long for it to happen. Interception on Joe Milton. What are your thoughts about Lowry? Do you think he solidified a roster spot with his performance today?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. I thought he was pretty secure once Kone and Longer Beam went down. And, of course, you never want to see it happen that way, like I said. But, yeah, this 100% to me signals Ruben Lowry's making this team. And I think John Harbaugh's comments about him were very telling about the fact that he is playing corner. And guess what he was doing when he intercepted that pass, Sam? He was playing single high safety.
Yes, he was.
That is the definition of what you need. Plus, you want to know another way to make the Ravens? You play special teams and you play it well. And he did that. He was everywhere on the field, super impressed. He just always seems to be around the ball. He has a nose for the football. I think that Lowry, and it's interesting because he was playing, if I'm not mistaken, ahead of Bo Braid. So, and I know that I don't think there was anything serious with Bo Brady. Went into the injury tent at one point in the later parts of the game, but seems like the Ravens really like him. And I think that both he and another undrafted rookie we might talk about a little later are might be locks for this roster right now. And I think that's really cool because the Ravens always have that eye for talent. But yeah, I was super impressed with Lowry. I think he's on this roster for sure.
Yeah, I think it's Lowry's. And you mentioned, he has overtaken Bo Braid's spot. I think Harbaugh mentioned a little bit that maybe a little difficult for Bo Braid to push his way in. We'll see what happens. Lots of time left before the regular season, but I think Lowry solidified his spot in that team. He's a guy who we love to see, always find a way to get to the ball. And that's what Lowry has done. And again, you mentioned the special teams. He's a great guy. Any other standouts on defense you want to talk about in this contest?
Yeah, Jay Higgins. Shout out to Jay Higgins, man. I mean, we talked about it last week where there is open opportunity for these guys to make the roster at that spot. I think that Teddy Buchanan also played really well. I'm curious to go back and look at his tape. Jay Higgins as well, a couple other guys. But yeah, I think that the fact that he's forced 2 turnovers in 2 games, and that's been the big emphasis of the Ravens defense, that was really big. And I think that he flies around the ball. I didn't really see a bunch of Trenton Simpson. I'm not sure if you did, Sam, or not. Trenton Simpson didn't really pop to me as much as Buchanan did. So
no.
Feels like Buchanan to me has overtaken that spot that Simpson was supposed to get last year. Clearly did not happen that way. A couple of other underrated guys. CJ Ravenel had a really good game on the D-line. I thought that he's flashed these first 2 weeks. Malik Ham getting involved on the action. Shout out. I think people forget Malik Ham's still on the roster. I think people forget he's there, but he had a really nice game. Thought TJ Tampa had some plays in this one. He was up. He again was kind of like last week. He had some ups and downs over the course of the game, but it's good to see him get playing time.
Yeah.
Another one, I think Malachi didn't do like a ton in terms of the box score. We only had 1 tackle, but he had a drive where I thought it was really good. He ended up coming down on a leak out from the tight end to prevent that throw to force Milton to hold the ball, and I believe that resulted in an incompletion. So that to me is like winning plays. I thought Malachi has made winning plays over these first couple of weeks, and that's why the Ravens drafted him. He's a super smart football player, super smart person, and sometimes impact doesn't always show up in the box score, like we talked about with Mike Green. I thought Malachi had that impact too, albeit to I guess a lesser extent than Green did because Malachi didn't play as much, but I think for those 2 rookies, you're seeing everything you want to see out of those guys. Yeah,
I'm very impressed by Higgins, and I think he's a guy who also will likely make the team. Going to be very interesting what happens with Trenton Simpson because, we talked about potentially Teddy Buchanan coming in and overtaking that spot if he doesn't show out in this camp. And even though Trenton Simpson looked good early on, seems like he's kind of fizzled out, and Teddy Buchanan's kind of flashing, showing himself. He's a little smaller than Simpson, so he may get lost in those big bodies and those big players when you're playing the jumbo formation. But, a guy like Jay Higgins could come in and kind of alleviate some of that concern as well, that combo. Simpson could be a guy that, I don't know, he could be lower in the depth chart. If you get too low, we mentioned all these other positions with a surplus of talent that the Ravens may need to keep. It's going to be tough. I don't know. Trenton Simpson looking like a guy who might be fighting for a spot here in the last preseason game of the upcoming season. When we come back, we'll give general takeaways, lots and lots of players, maybe a little stock up, stock down, see who's performed well, who hasn't, give you a sense of where we need to go in this last preseason game as the regular season is definitely getting closer and closer. That Bills matchup will be coming up soon. We'll be able to talk about that, but we'll give you general takeaways from this contest here next on the Ravens Squad Show. Welcome back to the Ravens Squad Show. Again, we are available twice a week, once during the week and then another post-game show after the game next Saturday. Will be their last preseason game of the preseason, so we'll have a post-game show after that, but we'll have another show on Monday in a couple of days, touching on the preseason game and giving you an outlook on who needs to perform and the rest of the way as we get closer to the end of preseason. Also, Locked On Ravens podcast will be available every day, Monday through Friday, and even sometimes during the weekends, depending on the action. Kevin Oestreicher will have everything you need for that, so make sure you tune in and check it out. Ravens looked good. Overall, lots of criticism, lots of praise. Overall, the Ravens did well. 31-13 win. They're looking like they're primed and ready to make a statement here in the regular season. Kevin, what are your general takeaways from this contest? overarching, we'll start with the offense. How do you feel this unit's come together? It wasn't just Daniel Falele who played that's going to be starting in the upcoming season. We had some Rosengarten. We also had some did Talon play? I don't know. Talon did not play, but NG Voorhees did play. So what are your thoughts about that heading into this regular season, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they are continuing to establish momentum. I mean, I know it can be hard, especially when the starters aren't playing, to be able to get that. But, as we know, this is not a league where you stay healthy the whole season. Every team deals with it. I hate saying it because you never want injuries to impact kind of everything that goes on with the team and how everything goes that way. But, the unfortunate reality is it does. And so you have to have depth ready and available over the course of an entire year. And I think the Ravens have done a really good job at being able to get that depth in and get them ample playing time with one another. Now, I know the offensive line, they've been working hard. They've been working on those cadences that everybody is nervous about and worried about. And I get it. Like I kind of am too. I mean, it hasn't been necessarily super pretty in terms of how they have figured, there's been this game in particular. I don't know if you felt this way, Sam, but it was just a ref show the whole way. I mean, there were 17 penalties in this game. Like it was legitimately just flag. Game felt like it went on for 8 hours because of all the flags that were going on. But yeah, I think to me, the offensive line is in the offense in general. Like we're not really going to know until Lamar steps on that field in week 1, or hey, maybe they do play a preseason game against or a series against the Commanders. I'm not sure, but yeah, I think at the end of the day, they'll be okay. They'll be okay. I just got to keep saying it.
I like Corey Bullock. There's a guy that we didn't really mention.
Yeah.
He's come out of nowhere. I mean, he was in the practice squad for a couple of seasons. Now looks like he's taking over Nick Samac's spot. What are your thoughts about him overall? And do you think he's probably locked in that secondary spot here come the end of the end of the preseason?
It seems like it. I mean, it seems like he's there. It especially with how he's performed. He's gotten rave reviews during training camp, like we've talked about. I mean, man, it feels like it's like we could have. There were obviously the years, and it was that streak of 20 plus whatever years of the Ravens having an undrafted guy on their roster. There could be like 3 or 4 legitimate. We forgot to mention Keon Martin in the defensive part of the show. There are a lot of guys, undrafted players that could make this roster. Now, I know that Bullock has been with the team, so he's not like a technical undrafted free agent, like a rookie. He's been with the team, but hey, as a Terp, always love some Terp representation on the Ravens. So Samek hasn't really done anything. Like it just feels like he's just kind of been there, and they've kind of taken these flyers on late round interior guys. Samek was last year, Dellinger was this year, but sometimes it's just the guys on who come out of, I don't want to say nowhere, but it seems like having that year with the team has helped him learn the system, be more confident. And, we always know after the first year for a lot of guys, not everybody, but for a lot of guys, the game slows down, whether you're playing or not, just like being around the game in general. And it feels like that's what's happened for Bullock here.
Yeah, Bullock has impressed me. I am, a lot of teams don't really spend a lot of money on centers. Tyler Linderbaum, obviously one of the top 2 centers in the league. In fact, a case can be made that he's the best center in the league. And he's going to get a payday. The Ravens going to get his option for next season. So he's going to be looking for a new contract. And if Corey Bullock plays as well as he has, the Ravens have a little wiggle room in terms of how they have this roster set up for 2026 and beyond. So Corey Bullock's definitely impressed me. Obviously, I think the Ravens are going to do their best to get Tyler Linderbaum signed. But worst case scenario, they have a guy in Corey Bullock who I think has played well enough to at least, give them some confidence that they'll be at least average. I mean, if they're going to keep Daniel Falele on the field, then I think you could do a lot worse in the offensive line than Corey Bullock. But it's really good to see Corey Bullock get things done. What about the defense? The defense looked very bad in the first early goings of the regular season in 2024. So far, it looks like the shift in personality, the shift in how they're feeling, everything seems different with this defense in year 2. It starts with Jaire Alexander, who again hasn't played in the preseason, but looks like his youth, his I don't know even the word to use, his general enthusiasm has really shaped up for this roster, especially in the secondary. What are your thoughts about the defense?
Yeah, just the energy. I mean, it feels like the energy is shifted, and not that it was like bad last year or anything along those lines, but I mean, it clearly is a shift from kind of what happened last year. I mean, Marcus Williams and Eddie Jackson, feels like Jaire's kind of brought that. Like it's like it's a youth type of energy, like just having fun. And I'll never not use an opportunity.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
No, I'm not. Okay. Well, okay. Now you okay. Well, now you're bothered. No, I'm kidding. But no, for me, when Jaire said that for Marlo, and I guess yes, J-Lo is still a thing, by the way. I thank Sam for that. I wasn't even thinking about it. But when Jaire was talking about Marlo, and he was like, "Well, I thought I was weird," but then I met Marlo, and it's just that energy, man. Like truly, vibes can mean a lot when it comes to a team. And I think we saw last year, it was just a weird year for the Ravens in the vibes department last season. Like they had all this drama that really was different. And I just think that at the end of the it's going to catch on eventually. It's going to catch on eventually. But
God,
I think that with the way that the secondary is just, and I think Marlon's taken on a big role in this as well, where like Marlon is actually very insightful in terms of how he thinks. I know people just kind of look at him as kind of like the class clown of the Ravens and like, oh, he's funny, which he is. But at the same time, like he truly has like that introspective and insightful part inside to him where like he truly cares and he wants to be the best and he wants his team to be the best. And he provides answers that, you know, I think provide a lot of context and insight into how the team is thinking. So you have that funny, silly, goofy side with the secondary, but then you have the, all right, let's get down to business and let's go do this thing. And, you know, it's crazy. Like in all these talks about Jaire and Marlo and Malachi and all those guys, still got Kyle Hamilton on that field too, which, you know, you can't discount Mr. Kyle Hamilton. Was a little low. He was a little low on the NFL player rating list for
ridiculous
season. But I think when it's all said and done, he's going to get a little bump in that regard.
Yeah, ridiculous that Kyle Hamilton was that low. Ms. Bowman had a great question regarding Jaire. Is Jaire hurt? Bad? How come I haven't seen him on the sideline with the team? I don't know. I haven't seen much of him. It looks like the Ravens are downplaying it. Haven't heard anything outside that suggests that the injury is significant. What are your thoughts? Have you heard anything, Kevin?
I mean, I haven't heard anything. I truly do think I guess it's something that has to do with swelling is my best. I think that's something I might have read somewhere. They just want to be cautious and careful with him. And I think that they should be. I mean, it's tough to have them lose practice time. And I don't know the sideline situation. I truly don't. I know they're panning over and it's Lamar and Zay and Derrick Henry just chewing away on sunflower seeds, which shout out, sunflower seeds are a great snack. But, you know, regardless, I think it'll be fine. But I understand the caution because of who Jaire has been over the course of his career, which is an incredible player. But the injury situation for him recently, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you and I talked about it for months leading up to him signing with the Ravens. It's like the only way he comes to Baltimore is if his value is so tanked because of the injury situation and he wants to come to the Ravens. Like everything had to be a perfect storm and it happened. But this year, the goal is to have him be on the field for all 17 games. Now, if you don't have that from him, I think you are positioned well enough with your depth at that, you know, Chidobe Awuzie, a guy that I'm sure when Chidobe signed here, he was not expecting to be the fourth cornerback on this team. You know, things change in a hurry though at the NFL level. So you're good enough with the depth you have, but obviously when Jaire's on the field, it opens up a whole different can of worms with this defense.
It does. And just to make note of it, I think Jaire was on the sideline in this contest. He wasn't dressed obviously, but he is there. So we'll see what happens, you know. And Keon Martin, the guy we talked about earlier, he's the guy who on any other team playing this well would be a shoe-in for the roster. But you mentioned it, the Ravens have Humphrey, Alexander, Awuzie, Wiggins, TJ Tampa. You know, a lot of guys already here making an impact. It's going to be very difficult, you know, including Ruben Lowry, for him to make an impact. We'll see what happens. But, yeah, this is a crowded cornerback room. Very exciting to see these guys. Let's start with stock up and stock down. We'll start with stock up. Give me a few players that, you know, you think their stock rose after a big game here in the preseason 2.
Yeah, I talked about this on the Instant Reaction Show, and I put this tweet out. But, I mean, a lot of the guys we talked about, Mike Green is a huge stock up guy. I do think Cooper Rush is in the stock up category, even though he did have that pick 6. I just, I think that overall he played a lot better than last week, which again I'd be pretty concerned if he didn't. I think Keon Martin is a big one. Ruben Lowry is a big one. We talked about Jay Higgins and Teddy Buchanan. Falele, I thought, again, his stock was kind of on the downswing. So him getting some of that good stock back up was nice to see. Tyler Loop, obviously, his stock is through the roof right now. Malachi, CJ Ravenel, Malik Ham, a lot of different guys I thought were impressive.
Yeah, you stole all of my guys. Literally all of them. They're all.
Yeah, I left you nothing.
Left me nothing. I don't know if you said Tez Walker, but if you didn't, he's definitely my top guy along with Tyler Loop. They have phenomenal games and very exciting to see what Tez Walker did. I was very anxious to see him perform in week 1. Didn't get 2 because of the quarterback play. Obviously, we got a lot to see this time with the route tree. Looks like he's going to be a solid player for the Ravens, so that's good to see. Let's go stock down.
Yeah, well, this time you steal my guys. Who were your stock downs? You
all right, let's go. Let's see. Let me find my stock down, guys. I like it. David Ajabo, didn't think he played particularly well. Ben Cleveland, I thought this was a good opportunity after all the fanfare regarding Daniel Falele's poor performance in week 1. Even though Falele ended up playing good in week 2, I thought this would be a good opportunity for Ben Cleveland to show out enough to at least be able to say, well, both Ben Cleveland and Falele play good. That must mean that the Cowboys roster was terrible or what have you, but that wasn't the case. Falele was clearly better, and unfortunately, I believe Ben Cleveland's no longer going to be in that conversation. I already wasn't with the coaching staff, but definitely with the fan base. I think that kind of shuts the door, slams it shut, nail in the coffin, whatever you want to call it on that regard. Joseph Noboom didn't play particularly well. You'd love to see him play a little better, but he's not starting. But you would love to have another guy, kind of like what we saw with Patrick McCary, to be that guy. Who else? I think that's it. That's the only guys I had. I think overall this team played very well. I guess I can make a Wester perhaps. At least that receiver didn't play particularly well in regards to separation, but those were the only guys I saw, along with Trenton Simpson, that have my stock down for this week.
What'd you think about Ali? Up, down, in the middle?
Ali, I see the bursts. He didn't do enough, in my opinion, to separate himself from what we saw from Keaton Mitchell, who looked amazing. You'd like to see more. I think he is who he is at this point. A little disappointing because, I was very high on him last year. But I think he did enough to probably make the football team as a kick returner, but I'll put him somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, that's where I am too. I had him on my stock up, and then he had the drop, and then other guys played better, and I'm like, all right, I can't. Yeah, and the interception. What is it with these Ravens pass catchers and just
I don't know
bouncing the ball off their hands into defenders, man? We got to stop this, please.
Get it together.
Lamar, Cooper, training camp, like, man, you can't. Lamar could have had 1 interception last season. That he had 4. So, got to get that number down.
I mean, 4 interceptions, I'll take it. I even take 6. I mean, that's how great of a season it was for him. Yeah. I mean, 2 is even better. 0's the best, obviously. But I don't. I'm not going to put too much pressure on him to have the type of season that he had last year because it was an all-time great season that, for whatever reason, ended up with an All-Pro nod and no MVP. Who would have thought? Let's. We're not going to talk about that. We'll talk about that soon. Trust me, the Bills and Ravens game is coming, but we're not going to talk about it too much now because we're going to give the backup to time to shine with this preseason action. One player you want to see, Kevin, perform well next week is just likely their final chance before roster cuts.
Oh, in terms of a guy that is not going to make the roster right now, but game.
Yep.
That's a good question. I am going to go. I'm going to say if Jay Higgins has even an okay game against the Commanders, he'll make the roster. I want to see him continue his momentum. So I guess maybe it was a little bit. I see Ajabo's the big pick. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that from both Rick and June there. So
yep.
I see Leary from Tisha as well. So
Leary, okay.
Yeah, Leary, I think, is a guy that, if he doesn't have a good game, he's definitely not making it. If he does, I guess there's an outside shot that could keep 3 quarterbacks, but I think that Cleveland is making the roster. I think Nopum is making the roster. So in terms of guys that I think are on the outside looking in, I think, yeah, I'll agree. I think Ajabo is a good one.
I would love to see Bo Braid take a step in
True,
that
that's
direction.
another. Man, I'm off my game on this question.
That's okay. It's okay. It came out of nowhere. Yeah, it came out of nowhere. But I agree with it. I think for sure Jay Higgins is the guy. I think he makes the team. But I think, having a regular, just don't do anything stupid, Jay. You're really close to being a Raven come September. Yeah. That's where it is for him. I think for Bo Braid, it's kind of the same. Actually, it might be a little worse because Ruben Lowry just came out of nowhere. It looked like at the time we were trying to find Justin Simmons, and all of a sudden Lowry's coming in here and pretty much solidified their safety position. So Bo Braid, I think, needs to step up in a big way to have any shot of making this roster, and we'll see what happens.
You know who's one very quickly? Maybe, and this is maybe like a big galaxy brain one, but can CJ Okoye do enough to push John Jenkins out of his roster spot?
Nice.
I think Okoye didn't really flash to me a ton in this one tonight. At least not initially. So, either he has to force the Ravens to keep 6 defensive linemen, or he pushes John Jenkins out of his spot. So that feels like a better answer to me than Higgins, because I feel like Higgins has been playing well. Okoye had a great game in week 1, came back down to earth a little bit in week 2. So week 3 might be that Michael Pierce moment. We'll see.
Could be.
Yeah.
Joe says Nick Moore. Nick Moore might be the odd man out here. I don't know.
Man, I think Linderbaum will take his spot.
Yeah, I think his job is safe. I think he's going to be
Nick will be just fine. Yep.
Just fine. He's going to be here for a few more years, minimum. Well, that's going to do it for us here at the Ravens Squad Show. Again, appreciate all you guys joining us. It's 12:30 a.m.
Yeah, appreciate everybody. The late night crew. Again, once these games are at 1 p.m. and not 7 every night, the times will get a little more reasonable in terms of when we pop on here. And now once you get to the 8:15 games, 8:30, we're going to be all here at like 2 a.m. talking Ravens. So appreciate all the people tuning in late night.
Yep, we talked about it last week. I mean, if you're in preseason action and you're here almost to 1 o'clock a.m., you're one of the sickos here that are really, dialed in. So I appreciate you guys definitely for joining. It means you guys are locked in for the season. And obviously, if you weren't here live, doesn't mean you're in sicko too. Yep. Appreciate you guys. Make sure you tune in, subscribe. If you're listening and wherever you get your podcast, just make sure you give us 5 stars. Appreciate you guys for listening too. We have a great fan base on that aspect of media as well. So again, I appreciate you guys for joining us here on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Myself, Kevin Oestreicher, Q will be back on Monday talking all things Ravens for sure. We'll be back 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday live talking Ravens as we get ready for the final preseason game of 2025. We'll see you guys next week.